You're listening to RTL SA. Listening to RTL SA.
Brian Fitzy is a multi-talented, funky, fun-spirited artist with an R&B, soul pop feel to his music. Starting at the age of 9 in the depths of Philly, Fitzy blossomed his unique music skills with his violin honed in on what he knew best and rolled with it. Every year he set out to learn a new instrument, increasing his skill and knowledge that much more. Eventually learned piano, guitar, and many other instruments. After graduating high school, Brian went on to graduate from Westchester University with a degree in classical instrumental performance on violin. Kicking off his after-college career, Brian performed with the Foo Fighters at the Grammy Awards as a top 3 finalist in My Grammy Moment competition. He continued to play gigs, amazing crowds with his beautiful groovy sound, giving fans an experience they will never forget. Brian plays multiple instruments, is a strong vocalist, creative live looper composer, positively influenced songwriter, and very talented beatboxer. Being a one-man band solo act, Brian's bursting upbeat performance will leave you feeling as though you just watched an entire group perform. Even though he created all the magic on his own lonesome. It is a great pleasure to have Brian Fitzy on the show with me today. Brian, welcome to RTL SA.
Good morning. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good morning for you because it's quite early there. It is. Thanks for getting out of bed to chat to us.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, the last 10 minutes or so in the queue, just listening, getting all pumped up, I'm going to have the most productive day I've had in months. So thank you.
Great stuff. Now, Brian, tell me quickly, why are you standing?
I've been asking myself that for the last 10 minutes as well.
Should have pulled out
it was just a little bit easier to give you a decent production as far as audio and video went by just coming into my streaming space instead of sitting down in the studio with the webcam. So I'm a masochist, I guess.
No, 100%. And I'll tell you what, talking about the quality, that is one thing that stands out in your streams is the actual quality that you put out on air. And your streams are absolutely adored by a lot of people, and I was very fortunate to come across it. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did it all start? I mean, you've got quite a pedigree behind you.
Thank you. Wow. Where did it all start? Yeah, when I was just a kid, prior to playing any instruments, I always would mimic sounds, and I would walk around the house and listen to music, and I came up in a musical home and started beatboxing before I knew that was a thing that other people did. And I didn't find out until years later that people were beatboxers. I started playing violin when I was 9, and then just another instrument constantly. And all the different, my attention span, while it will stay gravitated on things I'm already doing, does wander to new things all the time. So all those new things eventually resulted in where I'm at now. And the whole performing as one person versus a band was just born out of necessity. I never set out to use any live looping technology or any of that. It kind of found me, and it's been a tool to be the fullest version of myself versus just being up here with a guitar or sitting behind a piano and singing. So it's incredible, the technology, how it's taken me places, and it's kind of shaped a little bit of what I am and who I am.
Now, one thing I didn't realize initially when I was reading up a bit about you was that you beatbox. Care to give us like 5 seconds of a little beatbox there?
Yeah. Thanks for having me this morning.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant. Okay, now, how many instruments do you actually play?
I would think a fair number is probably 10. There's a lot of instruments that have a substantial amount of common ground. So, like, violin and viola, I would consider to be the same entity, and all of the different instruments that are interfaced via keyboard, and there's instruments that I would come out and perform with, and then there are instruments that I am not at that proficiency level. So everything that I feature here is always is something that I can just talk through, so to speak. But there's other instruments that I once was significantly proficient in, and they just don't get a whole lot of attention from me anymore. So I'm trying to change that.
Isn't it like riding a bicycle?
A little bit. Sometimes it is, and in other times it's like riding a bicycle on the negative side where you fall a lot.
Oh, great analogy. I want to leave music for 2 seconds, just for 2 seconds. Let's talk about COVID-19, because it obviously is a challenging thing global wise. What's it like in Philly? Firstly, and then initially in the United States overall?
Yeah, we're experiencing things in there's a great amount of variety. So my state was very aggressive. A bit, honestly, everywhere in our country, it was a bit too little too late. But my state in particular was significantly aggressive in how much it shut down and how much it's still effectively shut down. So we're just now starting to lift a lot of restrictions, and we're still seeing cases at a relatively low level each day, whereas other states were in a big rush to open up, and things have ballooned since, and unsurprisingly. So it's been a weird time with that. The industry that I'm in is kind of in limbo. We're trying to figure out how we move forward. There are some artists that are starting to do drive-in movie theater tours where you have no contact with people, and it's just I feel like this is another period of innovate or die for so many of us. So many of us, especially that are in charge directly of our own destiny, so to speak. So it's weird. How's everything where you're at?
Oh man, pretty much the same as you. You know, me myself, I'm also a musician, so I'm in the same boat as you, where our industry has just shut down, and that's why the radio thing has taken a little bit more of a preference. What I wanted to ask you, talking about lockdown, I assume that you guys have been in lockdown and stuff like. What have you been up to? How have you been keeping yourself busy during lockdown?
Making things a whole lot. Finally, now that things have subsided a little bit, and I'll go out wearing full headgear. I've been finally making it out to lumber yards and stuff and picking up materials. I always build things. Most of the stuff here, this basement was, this bar space was my doing. The bar, all that stuff. I'm always building things, so that's been a great outlet. Doing the live streams, I think it was about 2 weeks in on the 14th. I hadn't had an event since I think probably the second or third, somewhere in there. And heading up to the 14th of March, which was when I did the first stream, I was thinking, well, I don't anticipate any of the events on my calendar actually happening as I watch things continue and unfold. So I was like, I have to do something. I did the first stream, and it was well received, but the production grade on the video side just wasn't where I wanted it. And with all the work that I do in pre-recorded video content, I have so much equipment, so it was like, what can I do to wrangle all this stuff together to actually use that to stream? So a lot of it has been retooling every week, trying to reapproach things and try to up the production just a little bit incrementally now. And I've been tearing my equipment apart and rebuilding and modifying and just tweaking it even further. I'm never happy with anything where it sits.
Well, you've done a great job, because I tell you what, your streams are very impressive. I've got some questions coming through on my stream. One of my guests, Jessica, wants to know if you're single.
No, I am not. I'm very much married.
Sorry, Jess, you're just going to have to deal with South African guys. And then another question, any plans to come to Africa? Come to South Africa?
I would love to. I was actually speaking with my postman this past day, and told him what I was going to be doing this morning, and he said, "Oh, have you been?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "You have to go." He was in the Navy for a while and was all over the world, and I've been all over the place in Europe and a bit in South America, and I would love to come. Absolutely.
I'm going to put you in contact with some festival organizers down here, because I think we need to get you into this country and get you on stage. Because since I've been playing your stuff this week, my audience have absolutely loved it, and they think that you are just the best thing since sliced bread.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Now, Brian, let's talk a little bit about looping, because what we see in your streams is everything starts from scratch. It starts with the beat that you create with your voice, and then you loop that. And looping is not necessarily something that's been around for very long. It's more a recent thing. So maybe you can give us a little idea of exactly what looping is.
Sure. The earliest iterations of looping were way more primitive than the technology that's around now. And in fact, the equipment that I use has a lot more hardware restrictions and limitations than the latest generation, which is mostly software based at this point. So I use hardware. And basically what looping is you do a thing and you're able to record that thing in the moment. So for example, I mean, I have the rig turned on right now. If I was to, the microphone I'm talking into right now is just going directly to you. The other microphone that's on the stand with all the instruments is plugged into a signal processor, which goes into the looper, which is basically just a standalone recording unit. It's got a bunch of buttons on it and controls that allow me to record on different tracks, which I can solo out, mute, stop, etc. So basically the way it works is I'll talk into the other microphone here. All I have to do is just push a button while I'm doing anything, and it'll start recording it. And when I'm done with that idea, I take my foot and once again on the same button, I push a button while I'm doing anything, and it'll start recording it. And when I'm done with that idea, I take my foot and once again on the same button, I push a button. Yeah, so then whenever I want to turn it off, I can hit a button, and when I want to turn it back on, I push a button. So the way that I kind of worked out a little bit of a routine with that to explain it to audiences, where it would be rapid fire and everything. So you can layer infinitely on top of one thing, and it's an interesting tool for me because it has so many possibilities, but you also have to respect it for what it can do on the negative side. You could easily build something way too big that you have nowhere to go from. So I've always tried to use it as a tool and not a crutch. Like, I could go out and perform without it, but with it, I can perform even more, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think you touched on something there which I think is important from a musician's perspective. A lot of people try to do too much with the production and end up messing up the song rather than just doing what is necessary for the production.
Totally. And I still, even being hyper aware of that, I still fall into that trap occasionally, live or in the studio, producing my own stuff. And it's a constant... you have to constantly walk it back and go, less is more. There's enough here. A great producer friend of mine who actually co-produced my last record, Joe Nicolo, he's always just saying, how much more are you going to cram into that bag before it bursts? You got to just know when to stop. So it's an important lesson for, I think, a musician at any point to, especially younger, to learn, because balance is so important.
Absolutely. Now, as opposed to where you've ended up, when you were growing up, and obviously music was a dream of yours and a passion of yours starting at the age of 9 and things like that, what did you dream of doing in music ultimately? Were you going to be a frontman of a rock band, or were you going to be a classical violinist, or what was your plan initially opposed to what you're doing now?
Definitely frontman of a rock band, and I did that for a while, in a number of iterations. And I still, when I'm not playing solo, very much love that role. I love not being tethered. I mean, I'll run around the stage. All my instruments are wireless and everything, but just being the front man and just playing lead guitar or electric violin, etc., is such a rush for me. I've been fortunate in that a lot of things that I dreamed about doing, I have done since. So there's still so much stuff that I want to do, and I'm never going to be. I don't think any of us really should be super content on where we are. We should always want a little bit more and just push ourselves to become a better version of ourselves. But I'm happy with what I've accomplished, and I'm excited for what I'm gonna put in front of me moving forward too.
And I was just about to allude to the future for you. Let's talk a little bit about your original music quickly, because your original songs are so well produced. And I'm not speaking necessarily just from the production value per se, but the arrangement and how you've actually put it down together. It's almost like you've perfected the art of arranging songs.
Thank you. That's like the highest praise ever. Wow. There's quite a few tunes of mine. You played Crutch. Crutch has gone through three or four iterations, and it got shaped at all these different points. I feel like it's only been in the last 5 years that I've been able to pretty much get it right the first time, and I think that's a good thing to constantly revisit things. And honestly, you're a musician as well. When you're performing other people's music, that you start to wear that after a while. And if you have enough distance between when you started doing a piece of music and where you are now, a lot of the times it starts to become a lot more you than it was when you started doing the piece of cover music. So it's that same process, I think, of distillation happens to my music. And a lot of performing other people's music through the years has influenced how I'll write and how I'll shape songs. But I always try to take just like a hard left turn whenever I hit what feels like a roadblock. What wouldn't I do? And then go that way. And then that becomes a thing that I do. So.
Awesome. Now, aside from planning a trip to South Africa in the future, what is in the future for Brian Fitzy?
I hope going back to some level of normalcy. That would be awesome. I'm going to continue to do the live streams. Even when I go back to having a busy schedule, it's going to stay that way. I'm working on new music right now as well, so hopefully I'll be releasing something soon. I also have a number of different series that I've been producing for my YouTube channel that hopefully will be ready to launch. I want to have things, basically a full season, full series together to release. When I used to do my Throwback Thursday series on YouTube, which I am going to come back to, that was a all-day production schedule. In the morning, I would choose the song and then learn the song, come up with an arrangement, make it work on a loop station, get all ready for that, set up the cameras, shoot it, try to get a take, then edit it and have it posted early in the afternoon so it would, appease the algorithm. I'm trying to avoid creating that level of tension in my life. So, a lot of new content would have been the short answer, I think, for you.
Okay, so you're going to be focusing a lot on your online presence, in other words.
Totally.
Do you think that's...
I have the surplus of time, so...
Yeah, for sure. But just in closing, do you think that that's a way that music is moving, the direction that music is moving now?
Absolutely. I have found since starting the streams, which is something that I had honestly written off a bit prior to this, as a serious direction to go, I've been able to reach people that I otherwise would have not been able to reach live.
Like us South
my
Africans.
Subscriber base, precisely. I know. Talk about full circle here. Normally my viewing audience is watching content that I've created in the past via YouTube, etc. So being able to reach people in the moment. And I'm trying to come up with a little bit more of a framework. I'm just kind of taking solicitations here and there of what would be the most ideal time frame for me to do. I'd like to do my East Coast United States show, but it would be nice to do another time frame where everybody in Europe and Africa aren't staying up until 3 a.m. to watch me. So I feel like catering towards that and really digging in. I'd like to up the production even more too, multicam and have some kind of automation. And I think it's a serious venture. And I think with how uncertain the market is going to be and all the restrictions that venues face for what could be 18 months moving forward, we're going to have to come up with some way to reach people, and people want to be reached. Like we want some type of community, and music is healing, man.
I also think one of the positives about the online presence is the fact that people can get restreams. For example, we don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch your show live now. We can actually catch it at 9 o'clock when we've got a cup of coffee and had some breakfast in our body.
Yes. That is the coolest thing.
Brian, it's been absolutely amazing to have you on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to do it firstly, and thank you so much for getting out of bed to have a chat to us.
Noel, thank you for getting me out of bed this morning. I appreciate it. Thanks
Great
for
stuff.
having me, seriously.
You've got a lot of work to do now, and I'll be in contact with you shortly with some contact details for festival owners, festival organizers in the country, and look forward to seeing you in South Africa one of these days.
That sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to it too.
Great stuff. That's Brian Fitzy for you on RTL SA, and I told you what a nice guy to talk to and great talent, and look forward to hearing more of his original stuff and seeing where he goes in the future.
You're listening to RTL SA.
RTL SA.